Kirby Smart, he got his guy.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Georgia Bulldogs football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste, and alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Brian Gebhardt. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. The Atlanta Football Party is also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So did the guys and or the NFL get it right this past weekend? And you might be able to get a tour in Athens from a top dog. We'll talk about it all. But first, let's talk about Kirby Smart with a big get as the transfer portal comes to a close. So guys, finally, we've gotten to the other side of the draft. And it looks like we have also finally gotten to, for the most part, the other side of the portal. So when you look at the fact that the Dogs were able to snag Jaden Rashada, pretty darn good get, as we talked about the possibilities last week of what he might bring to the table, especially for that quarterback room. But here's a thought. And you know, Jarvis, this is not obviously to put any ill will out there. We definitely don't want anything to happen to Carson Beck, but we know that things do happen. So the question becomes, with Jaden Rashada now in that QB room, where do you see things playing out just in case something did happen and Carson went down and that next man up had to be played out?
To be honest, right as of right now, given that he was with the team and as far as spring practice goes, it would have to be Gunnar Stockton, at least for the moment. But I want to go back to that spring game, and when they had to throw the football, like he didn't necessarily. I feel like he didn't necessarily live up to what the standard is at UGA, because we know that he's a mobile quarterback. He's a guy that that is a one of those combo type guys. But I really feel like if Jaden Rashada is able to come in and get there right now, get enrolled and try to, for the summer, I'm saying, because, spring is about to be over right now. But if you're talking about getting into that summer enrollment and getting down there and getting with Mike Bobo and kind of like living at his office and, hey, Mike, I need to get some work in. I feel like he can potentially be that guy. But, as of right now, how things are going, I feel like Gunnar Stockton would be that guy. And I feel like Mike Bobo will have to change some things as far as how that offense goes, because when you're talking about a potential number one overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft and Carson Beck, it's going to be a significant drop-off when you go to that next guy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Gunnar Stockton as well, just because for some of the reasons you had said, Jarvis, this is his third year with the team. Like, he understands what's being asked of him, all those type of things. I think what's interesting, whether it is going to be Gunnar Stockton or Rashada, is that it'll probably be a similar package. Like you mentioned, they're going to have to change the offense for Gunnar Stockton, but Rashada's more Gunnar Stockton than he is Carson Beck, at least what we kind of know of him, because he's only had those three starts. I think the Rashada thing is, while it's going to be a great backup plan and situation, he's got 4 years of eligibility. So I think this is as much of a 2025 and beyond play as it is for next season. I'm curious to know, like, how much of an opportunity he's going to get to actually be the backup, as opposed to just coming in and being another person to learn the offense and everything. It's going to be interesting, though. Just say, hypothetically speaking, again, we don't like to talk about injuries, but like you said, Tenitra, things happen. So if Beck goes down and it's against one of these big teams, I wonder how they go about it versus, if he rolls his ankle in the beginning of the third quarter against Tennessee Tech, I think it's very easy to then just go to Gunnar Stockton. It's like, all right, let's see what he's got. We're probably up 3 or 4 scores anyways, kind of a situation. So, but I do think it's Gunnar Stockton who gets the first crack at it, regardless of opponent.
Yeah. And, Brian, another thing that we have to think about, like you said, regardless of the opponent, but so that may not be where the change kind of comes in, but the change might actually come in based on who else isn't available, because we're talking about the fact that Carson Beck may not be available, but in the pecking order, what if it's Ryan Puglisi, then Gunnar Stockton, then Jaden Rashada, but something happens to Ryan Puglisi. To me, he still remains the X factor because we just didn't get to see him a lot in spring practice because he was dealing with an injury.
Yeah, I think that Puglisi and Rashada are almost going to be kind of on the same path in terms of coming in and, all right, you guys are kind of de facto tied for QB3. What do we do? What do we do from here with it? Just because, I think Stockton is in that spot. He got the reps. He got the spring game. He's been there for 3 years. So, and there is, as much as Kirby wants to open it up a little bit more and potentially might have the number one quarterback in the next year's draft, like he still wants to keep it on the straight and narrow, run the football. He knows how good this defense is. So maybe he thinks, okay, Gunnar Stockton will make the least amount of mistakes, because that's how he used to go about the quarterback position for a while until he kind of opened things up. So I think they both come in as almost tied QB3 on the depth chart and see what happens.
I think one of the things that's interesting about what you just said, BG, is the fact that Jaden Rashada tweeted out that one of the reasons why he would, chose Georgia was because he's going to be able to come in and develop. And when you think about where Carson Beck has come from, right, losing out against Stetson Bennett ended up going to win 2 national championships. Carson Beck could have come out this year, and you see if Bo Nix, I'll tell you this, if Bo Nix was drafted in the top 12 as a quarterback, I would dang sure take Carson Beck before Bo Nix. So he could have come out this year, but he wanted to be able to come back and continue to develop. He liked what he did as his first year. He only had 1 year as a starter, so he wanted to come back and get that second year. We saw how successful that was for Michael Penix, right? Because think about it, he would have come out after 1 year at UW. It would have been a different situation. So I feel like I like where this theme is going, right? Because guys coming in, understanding that, hey, I have stuff to work on. I can be a better football player than what I was in high school. Imagine that concept, and it's okay if I don't come in and start right away. So I feel like Rashada has the right mindset, even if he's tied at QB3, like you said, BG. But I feel like he's coming in ready to work, and I feel like this is going to be something that's going to be very good. That's going to benefit him.
Yeah, I think it's an easy sell too with Rashada in terms of, hey, come in. You might be sitting behind the number 1 overall pick in the draft. He's a guy who coming out was a top 30 recruit and thought he was going to be the guy, the 13 mil that never came from Florida, bouncing to Arizona State. But it's like, all right, come here. This is currently the best program in the country. You're going to come behind here, and you might be behind the number 1 pick. And if not the number 1, he's definitely going to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks between Shedeur and Quinn Ewers as well. Those 3 guys almost definitely are going to go in that top 3. It might not be 1, 2, 3 like we just saw this past week, but yeah, I think that's an easy thing to say. Hey, come in, sit behind one of the best in the country. Okay.
Yeah. Now, guys, speaking of, and one of the things just that might be good as well is having all 4 of those guys in that room to push one another too, so that you can see what excellence looks like all across the board. Competition never hurts. And speaking of competition, the NCAA athletes are now eligible to play immediately, no matter how many times they transfer, as long as they meet academic requirements after the NCAA fast-track legislation to fall in line with a recent court order. So the basics on it, guys, is this. The D1 Board of Directors formally ratified the change to the transfer rule recently and approved a tweak that allows schools to identify NIL opportunities and facilitate deals between athletes and third parties. So those are your top liners. The fact that athletes can transfer immediately and the fact that schools can look out for NIL opportunities. Jarvis, how do you think, good or bad, this impacts the decisions that schools will have to make going forward as it relates to this news about the transfer portal and NIL?
I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like there's, from a player standpoint, hey, if you get your grades, you can go anywhere you want. I mean, who wouldn't like that idea? I mean, I understand that, it feels like it's opening up a little bit more, but there's a caveat to it. You actually have to be a student athlete in order to do that. So, so hey, here's a piece of candy, but hey, you got to do something in order to get it, just like you did when you were a little child. So from that standpoint, I like it because, hey, it gives them an incentive to, make sure you get your lesson, as the old folks used to say.
Yeah, it's time that this happened. It's good too, because it just seems like it's more. We're just trying. I think we're headed towards being more transparent about all of it, right?
Yeah,
just get your grades up. You can go wherever you want, because we've reached free agency. We're not going to call it that, right? That's what's going on right now. So it's like, okay, if your business is in order, you've done all the things that you need to do, and you're you should be able to go wherever you want. There shouldn't be restrictions on these kids, because for years we talked about it. These coaches can bounce whenever they want, and they can go wherever they want, whether that be a head coach, assistant coach, whatever it might be. So give the kids the same freedom, especially if they're doing what they need to do.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of giving kids freedom, and we know what that looks like when it succeeds, it's the NFL draft. Now we know 2024 is a wrap. So did our guys, Brian and Jarvis, get it right? We'll talk about where they landed in between the hedges. This episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So priority, last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other tickets. And there's a ticket coverage guarantee. Your price is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is to create an account. You got to download the app, and then you can redeem the code. I'll spell it for you. It's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is also brought to you by FanDuel. It is playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 if you win or if you lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. And Dogs fans, probably a good bet for you is on Anthony Edwards. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win, especially with Edwards and a team in the Minnesota Timberwolves who actually got a sweep. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel that is programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the background noise. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, guys. So the draft has come and the draft is gone, and the Dogs have done it again. So let's run it back first to where you guys landed with each player, where they actually landed, and if you guys think that's actually a good fit for him. So Brian, let's start with the big guy, Brock Bowers. Brian, you said you thought Chargers. Jarvis thought Jets. They end up with the Raiders. First pick for the Raiders at 13. Good fit?
Yeah, I wanted Chargers for him, but the Chargers made the right pick and picking Joe Alt and just excuse me, getting that offensive line right. It's a weird fit. I don't think it's necessarily like a bad spot. I was just kind of like, I mean, 13 overall. And the thing is just that they invested in Michael Mayer, the big guy from Notre Dame. They're obviously going to go with a lot of two tight sets. Mayer going to be more the inline blocking type. Brock's going to be out there. And he does have Devontae Adams to work off of as well, which is going to be nice for him, regardless of the quarterback situation, because they got Gardner Minshew. So I'm very curious to see how this works out. Like, I kind of wish he landed in a little bit better spot for him, but he's going to get opportunities right away, and he's going to have a chance to run open, run freely in this offense. Again, Devontae Adams is still one of those top 10 wideouts in the league. So didn't love it, but curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah. What about you, Jarvis? Oh, Jarvis, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. My bad, folks. Yeah, I look at Gardner.
You didn't like that Raiders pick,
man. Right. Clearly, didn't work for you.
I was cussing. I had to mute myself. I'm like, no, he'll need to go to Las Vegas. But I think, almost like it looked like Brock Bowers' daddy when his reaction when he got drafted. So, but I don't think it's necessarily a great fit, because when you think about Gardner Minshew, that's not the quarterback of the future. Aiden O'Connell, that's not the quarterback of the future. And there were rumors that they were very interested in Michael Penix Jr. Yeah. That didn't happen. So I, from that standpoint, I really look like, that's why I really love the pick that BG went with, because you have Justin Herbert there. We know he's going to be around for forever. As long as he can sling that tater, he's going to be in a Chargers uniform. So for the guy that's from the reasoning of the guy that's throwing him the football, I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily the greatest fit for Brock Bowers going forward.
Yeah. So we look at Amarius Mims. Jarvis, you said Steelers, which I would have loved. BG, you said Cowboys, 49ers. Mims goes to the Bengals with the 18th pick in the draft. Good fit for him, Jarvis?
Yeah, of course, because we know that, hey, they need to protect Joe Burrow. When you think about, from a protection standpoint, and also they need to be able to run the football. And we know how much of a mauler Amarius Mims can be, even though he didn't have that many starts, at Georgia. But you understand and you see the athletic ability, and you know what he can bring to the table being at that right tackle spot. So I really feel like that's a really good fit for him because of the need that they have for, to be able to protect their $40-50 million quarterback.
Yeah, that's it's a nice fit for him. What an offense to go block for, right? Like just the idea of, protecting Burrow and helping out Chase and Higgins and some of those other guys. So I think it's going to wind up being a really nice fit. And it's one of those things too, like Burrow, the injuries have slowly piled up for him too. So this is really important for him to be protected like this. That was a smart play there from the Bengals.
Indeed. So BG, let's go to Lab McConkey. You both said the Chiefs, and he ends up with the Chargers at the 34th pick. But is that Chargers offense a good fit for McConkey?
Yeah, I think so. And this is one of those ones I was mad at myself because I had my little sheet here, my little cheat sheet from last week, and I didn't hedge my bet with you guys on the podcast. I have 32 Chiefs and 37 Chargers right here. So that was the other spot that I really liked him to go to. This is a great fit for him, just in the sense of we have no idea who the wide receiver one is going to be on this team. They invested the first round pick last year in Quentin Johnson out of TCU. You got guys like Josh Palmer and then kind of, wide receiver 3-4 types on that roster. There's no real set tight end. They lost Austin Eckler. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities. And this is going to be with one of the better young quarterbacks in the league and an excellent, might be the best offensive line in total in the league as well. So it's a really great opportunity for Ladd.
I think Jim Harbaugh got a nice 2-for-1, right? When you talk about 1-2, you get an offensive lineman that can help protect your investment, and also then we knew for a fact, everybody and their mama knew that, hey, the Bills were going to go with a wide receiver. They didn't know it was going to be Keon Coleman, which I feel like he probably should have been a first-round pick when you think about it from a production standpoint and what he's able to bring to the table. So as soon as I saw Keon Coleman come off the board, I was like, yep, these wide receivers about to start running.
Yes.
And you understand that, hey, the Chargers, they did exactly what they need to do to get their guy. And then for them to get that type of guy right there, it is, you talking about I feel like Ladd is in the perfect situation.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. When Coleman came off the board, it's like, okay, here's a second run of wide receivers. Let's go. All right, Kamari Lassiter. So, Brian, you said Jaguars. Jarvis, you said Colts. Kamari ends up at the Texans. The second round, pick number 42. Good fit?
Great fit. This was one of those two. I was almost mad at myself for not picking any of these players to the Texans because what they've been able to do since they changed over everything over it's extremely impressive. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh man, that's a great fit. Like that's a nice fit. Playing opposite of Stingley, what they're starting to do with that defense, starting to bring, they brought in Danielle Hunter. They're going for it. Like they're swinging away, and he's going to have an opportunity to be on a really good football team right away. And this is an awesome fit for him. It's a great landing spot, and it's going to be awesome that he's able to slide in as that cornerback too, next to a guy like Stingley.
And this is my best fit out of all the dogs. Like Kamari Lassiter going to go be under the tutelage of D'Amico Ryans. Yes, sign me up. You're talking about one of the best young defensive minds in the National Football League. Oh, and scratch that. One of the best head coaches, in the entirety of the NFL. When you talk about being able to come in right away and have a guy like C.J. Stroud and then go after a guy like Will Anderson last year, and then now you go into the free agency and you go get a guy like Danielle Hunter who wants to come there, and we know that has not been the case since, DeMeco Ryans, took over, before he took over. So it is something brewing down there in Houston. And when you're talking about, like I said that Lassiter would fall with the Colts, like in the AFC South, like I was in the right division, didn't necessarily have the right team, but when you think about it though, that's a division that, man, it doesn't look good for those other teams. They better get on it, because Houston is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. I thought the same thing. Like when I saw that he got that pick and went to the Texans, I was like, ooh, as much as I would have loved him, any of these top players that we've spoken about so far to go to the Steelers, you got to kind of give him a nod for that. Like, man, the Texans just there's no chill. There's no chill in Houston. Like they figure we're going to be as good as anybody else. And we know that they're young. So this is something that we could see out of them for years to come. But yeah, they're one of those up and coming teams that's going to make the AFC take notice. Now, Javon, Bullard, Brian, you said Bills, Lions, or Ravens. Jarvis, you said Falcons. He goes to the Packers in round 2 at the 58th pick. So Jarvis, good fit for him?
Absolutely. When you think about Green Bay, they've never drafted a Georgia Bulldog on the offensive side of the football. That is some interesting stuff, right? So for them, you got like Eric Stokes and Devontae White, go there, and with those national championship teams, of course, they're plucking guys off of there. But for them to kind of get a guy like Javon Bullard where they got him, it just really speaks to the playmaking ability that Javon has. And I think that he's going to be one that's going to be a really solid fit for him, being with that team like that.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of run early. I didn't know that about the offensive players for Georgia. That's interesting. And now the Packers are slowly, building up a lot of Georgia players on that team. Like you mentioned a couple of those names a minute ago. It's always nice too when you can just keep the G.
Quay Walker too, yeah, forgot about him.
Keep the G and just change the color of the G. You just it's got to go red and black, just to green and yellow. You don't have to, just change a little bit of the colors in the wardrobe. But yeah, he's gonna plug and play right away on what was a team that really overachieved last year. They were really impressive what they were able to do in Jordan Love's first year as a starter. They're always right there. They've run that division for a very long time. So again, a really, really nice fit, and just a couple of picks away from where we said he may go. So a good landing spot forward.
We know what we're talking about, BG. Come on now. Let's get
right here. We may have not gotten all the teams right, but we were within
you guys were in the ball. Yeah.
We were in the ballpark.
You were definitely in the vicinity. So Tyke Smith, he goes, well, Jarvis, you said Bills, and Brian, you said Ravens. He ends up with the Bucks at the 89th pick in round 3. Is that a good fit for him, Brian?
Yeah, I think it's a nice fit. I would have liked to have seen him go to a slightly better team, even though the Bucks just won the division, right? He also went a little earlier than I thought. He's the one I thought may have been a 4th rounder, but he's enough of a playmaker where the Bucks decided, okay, let's go ahead and do this. So I like the fit. I don't love the fit, maybe just because he's in another NFC South team versus the Falcons instead. So it's kind of like, good luck, sort of, but best of luck with Tyke there. I feel like it was like a B- sort of a fit.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's a decent fit, right? Because he doesn't have the pressure of coming in and start right away, I don't feel. So I just think from the versatility is what kind of moved him up, right? Because a lot of teams are going to, hey, that nickel, we know how important that spot is. And he has a lot of experience there and start playing the star position at Georgia, then also playing on the back end of the defense, playing that safety spot. He has experiences there. So this is a guy that has a lot of experience in playing a lot of important spots, on the next level. So I feel like that's probably what boosted him up a little bit. But for the Bucks,
Can't get too excited about that one.
Yeah, can't get too excited about it. Right.
Indeed. We're going to talk about a few more dogs who made it into the draft, but also a dog doing good when we come back on the other side. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. we got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends, to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. So there's so much that you could do. Hilarious emojis even for taunting your friends. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day because they give you mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. So there is always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. That's Monopoly Go. Game on. All right, guys, we got a few more draft picks and some undrafted free agents to talk about as well, starting with Cedric Van Pran. Jarvis, you said he'd go to the Falcons. Brian, Steelers or Eagles. He actually ends up going to the Bills in the 5th round at pick 141. Jarvis, was that a good fit?
Absolutely, because I feel like this is going to be one of the more underrated, draftees in this particular class, because I feel like he's going to be a guy that is going to may not come in and start right away, but I really feel he's going to work his way into the offense, and they're going to absolutely fall in love with this cat. And if people are going to be looking back on this pick of Fran Granger a few years from now, they're like, dang, why did he go so late? Because
the same. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's where he is. That's where I'm at with Van Pran Granger.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just went too late for me. I mean, it was just at least a full round. I mean, I thought he might even sneak into the 3rd, but I like the landing spot for him to be, potentially hiking the ball to Josh Allen here pretty soon. And at some point in time, hopefully the Bills figure out a power run game, because that's what Van Pran's built for, is just going north and south. Like laterally, he isn't as good as some of the other interior offensive linemen. That's probably why he dropped a little bit in this draft. So I like the landing spot for him. And that's a nice luxury piece for the Bills. They did some nice things in this draft with Keon Coleman and a few other pieces there too. So good get for them. Really good value where he went.
Yeah, very much. And they're, like you all said, they're very fortunate, because as the 3rd round wrapped, as the 4th round wrapped, I was surprised as well that Cedric Van Pran Granger hadn't been picked up. Zion Logue, Jarvis, you said Bucks or Falcons. Brian, you said Saints, so you guys were right in the ballpark. And Jarvis, I think this might be the only one that we got right in the entirety of this draft.
Represent for the team, T. I got to hold it down for the folks. But yeah, shout out to all my people. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we do on this podcast. Y'all make sure y'all check us out. But seriously though, I think. But you know what? To be honest with you, before we got to the 6th round, I thought I was going to be wrong, because the Falcons had a run on defensive ends / defensive tackles. Yeah. But the one small little thing that I feel like that might be working in Zion Logue's favor. He's the guy that he can play a little end or whatever. He can kind of move around up and down that defensive line, but he has a lot of experience playing on that nose spot. So I know that that you don't play in that base defense often, but when they are in it, he can potentially be a guy that can kind of work his way into that rotation, and potentially be a guy that, if he does what he's supposed to do, he can be a guy that can get a lot of reps, on 1st and 2nd down. So I think that, for Zion Logue, this is probably about the perfect spot, because we understand where that defensive tackle situation is for the Falcons, and all those guys are sitting on 30+.
Yeah, it feels right that if we're going to get one right, it was Jarvis picking a defensive lineman here locally from Georgia to go to the Falcons, especially a big interior defensive lineman as well. But like you said, yeah, I think the versatility might be what ultimately winds up having to make this roster. I hope that's, I hope that's ultimately when you get picked where he got picked. You just want to be on the team, be able to get some reps, get in there in different sets. But if you're able to play that straight up nose or that end in that base 3-4, like it's going to be really good for him. And he's had the reps and experiences. There's nothing super explosive about him or anything, but he can get the job done. And hopefully he shows enough in training camp and throughout the offseason that he's able to make this roster.
And we looked at Dejon Edwards as well. And Jarvis, you thought he might land with the Titans. Brian, you thought Chargers. He ends up going to the Steelers as an unrestricted free agent. Not bad, Brian. I'm good with that.
Right. And who knows what happens moving forward with the Steelers running back situation. I mean, they're going to have their guys and Najee and Jaylen Warren, who showed a lot, especially midseason and later on. And, Tomlin just likes his Georgia guys, so he's got to bring them in. But this was kind of to be expected. I mean, we said maybe fifth or sixth round, but wouldn't be shocked at all. I think Jarvis had this even more about him being undrafted. Again, he's a guy who hopefully he gets a shot at some point, and it'll probably be based on injury or need or whatever that might be. But hopefully he gets the reps where he gets an opportunity at some point in time in the league.
Yeah, when you think about the makeup, right? You always hear Terry Fontenot, and I think Mike Tomlin is a makeup guy as well, because he loves some Georgia boys. Those guys are like, they come in a certain way and like they have a certain mindset. And I'm sure that's what he preaches when those guys walking through those doors up in Pittsburgh. So I think for Dejon, though, when you talk about not necessarily having the long speed, but that short area quickness is kind of where he's going to make his money, so to speak. So I feel like this may be a solid fit for him, but like I said, it's going to be really, really hard, to make this squad because of who BG just mentioned.
Yeah.
However, but if you can play dog on special teams,
hey,
I'm telling you, man, you can make that club, man. Get on that special team. So yeah, he better be ready to get it going on that side, on that aspect of the football.
And a couple others real quick who were picked up as undrafted free agents. Kendall Milton, Brian, you thought he might get squeezed in with the Browns and Commanders, Jarvis with the Giants. Well, Jarvis, you were in the ballpark. He did land in the NFC East with the Eagles. Brian, what do you think about that as a fit for him?
It was just, I was actually pretty shocked at this one that he didn't get drafted. This was the most wrong I was about any of it. Maybe I just bought into what he did later on in the season. And maybe teams were worried about his soft tissue injury situation because he had been banged up most of his career. I mean, the most healthy he was down the stretch last season. But given the lack of depth and talent really in this running back group this year in the draft, I was shocked that he didn't go off the board at some point. And sometimes these running backs like to go. I mean, it's nice to get drafted, but sometimes it's also good to be able to choose where you're able to go. So if you're with the team and an organization like the Eagles, who's really had it together the last few years, Saquon's got an injury history. They don't have DeAndre Swift anymore. So who knows if he's able to work his way up through that practice squad.
Yeah, I think the injury report was a little long, right? When you think about it, because those, especially when it comes about running backs, man, like for certain positions, you be like, oh yeah, he can bounce back. But you talking about running backs, man, you only got a certain amount of carries, man, before teams start looking at, well, he about to get ready to fall off a cliff. Time to move on to the next guy. So and it's kind of unfortunate because I like Kendall Milton, but when he's fully healthy, he's a guy I feel like that can be on someone's roster. So we'll see how that works out.
And Jarvis, just to wrap us up, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, you thought he might go to the Texans or Rams. Brian, you thought maybe Patriots. He ends up as an undrafted free agent with the Commanders.
Yeah, like when you think about Terry McLaurin and all those guys that they have on top end of that lineup, you feel like when you got a guy like Dan Quinn coming in and he likes a certain type of guy as well too, right? And I feel like Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint understands, he understands that mindset, and Quinn is very familiar. Even though they didn't draft that many Georgia players, but he understands what they bring to the table. And I think Rosemy-Jacksaint is another one that, hey, special teams is going to be your friend, and they understand the importance of special teams down in Athens.
Yeah, I think it wound up being a good landing spot for him. Special teams, he could be able to do that. And this Washington team, outside of Terry McLaurin, their wide receiver group is kind of totally up in the air. They thought Dotson might be a guy. They drafted Diami Brown a couple years ago. Like, they haven't had a consistent wide receiver too. Granted, part of that's because of the quarterback play. So hopefully Jaden Daniels hits for them. And again, it's another guy who I do think he winds up making this roster though via special teams. I think he's good enough to be able to do that.
And speaking of special, we just wanted to give a shout out to Malachi Starks, of course, your consensus All-American, who has a lot of honors as far as what he does on the field. But here's a cool thing that he did off the field. According to the AJC, he played host and guide for a small group of students who visited UGA's campus recently, of course, in partnership with the Associated Credit Union. He has an NIL deal with them, but he took them on a tour of Georgia's North Campus and also showed them some football moves in a makeshift camp. So just a shout out to Malachi Starks for being one of the good good guys on and off the field. Thanks for stopping by the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Georgia Bulldogs football talk. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we're free and available wherever you download your podcasts. We'll see you on the Atlanta Sports Party Thursday.